makes a truly great leader? Is it success, title, influence, or something much deeper? On today's episode, Tricia is joined by educator, author, and speaker Dr. Calvin Lawrence as he shares personal life stories and testimonies of impacts that mentors and people have made on his life and the legacy that we can leave as well. And he also gets the opportunity to share about his new book, The Happy Leader. We hope that this podcast encourages you today. Thank you for tuning in.
Okay, so we're talking about leadership today. So, Calvin, you wrote a book and it is The Happy Leader, and we're going to talk about that. So, tell me, what inspired you to write this book and what did God place on your heart?
I'll tell you, Tricia. I was inspired because of some people in my life, in particular my parents, and I'll tell you what urged me to complete the book because I got into a what you could call a stop out, drop out. I started it and then I said, I can't do it. And and this probably will speak to some people, a lot of people who have gotten to that point, they've maybe tried to do something and they say, oh, can't do it.
Yeah.
So when my mother passed away, I really had this urging that I needed to get this thing done. And it pushed me to the point where I had to stop being lazy, heed the call. The Lord wanted me to do this anyway. And so I knew it needed to be told because those stories would not get told. Her story, her amazing story, my father's amazing story, and so many other mentors in my life who impacted me. And I had to get these stories out. The stories cut across almost every area of my life, and they also bring in the fact that it was a faith filled life that they led me through. My parents modeled it, then my sister and I continued it on. Hopefully, we continue on because that's part of the legacy. So that's really the push that caused me to write it, and that's it.
Well, I tell you what, writing a book is time consuming.
Yes.
And you're right. What happens is that we do tend to say, I want to quit because the
Hmm.
going gets hard. But isn't that
Yes.
in everything, Calvin?
I think
When
that's yeah, yeah. I would agree. I think you're right. I think, and sometimes it's in some of the best things that we're called to do. You before we came on, you talked about faith and how it's encouraged your life and how you move by faith. You walk by faith, not by sight. Of course, that's what we're supposed to do. But sometimes we think we get to something and we get to this huge thing like a giant and it's like we can't overcome it, but we forget about God and what he has. If he's given us an opportunity, then we just think to go ahead and walk on into it, and then he's going to cover the rest. And that's really what happened once I got started and I really got rolling. It was like, oh, things are starting to come to me. Why is this coming back to me? It's coming back because he wanted me to finish the book, right? So I'm listening and I'm hearing and stories that maybe I had thought I'd lost are coming back to me in a clarity that is not, it's definitely supernatural. Coming back and telling me this is why you need to do this, and this is what, and these stories need to be told because they can impact some people, even if it's just one, and I know it'll be more than one, they'll impact people and make a difference in their lives.
absolutely. That's why we share our testimonies, right?
Yes, that's
That's
true.
he tells us to
Yeah.
go and share our testimony because that testimony is what changes lives. Jesus,
Yes,
of
ma'am.
course, is the one that is touching them while we share the testimony, but the voice has to be out there. We have to go out and share. When the woman
Right.
at the well went and Jesus spoke to her, and she was the first evangelist there was out there, and she went to her town and she shared what Jesus said to her, then many believed. That's what the word says. Many
That's what the
believed.
word says. Right.
And
Right.
so that you sharing your testimony can maybe change lives in a direction and point them back to the Lord of how faithful He's been in your own life.
Yes, ma'am.
So, and one part I really liked about your book, and you and I talked about this right before we jumped on, was mentorship because I think
Right.
it's so vital. So, why is that so important to you?
Well, I kind of stumbled on this later in my life, Tricia. And then when I'm sharing all of this and I'm saying, so I go back in my memory and it's like, but the Lord put mentors in my life all the way through. I needed mentors to get through. I wasn't over it. We're not in this thing by ourselves. That's why I think we were created for relationship.
Mhm.
And of course, mentoring goes hand in hand with relationship. So people in my life, all the way going back to my original mentors, my mom and my dad, were there at these particular points in my life at these times when I needed them the most. I just didn't realize it. You know how you are, well, maybe not you. You were probably one of the great young people of the day, but I was a little bit of a knucklehead. And so I didn't always realize that they were that because I had a fourth grade teacher, because I had this coach that was so great and he wanted to go above and beyond, I didn't realize that they were placed there, uh, supernaturally placed. Somebody was praying for me, mom and dad for sure, but other people in my church, whatever, and they were there to help me make the difference or bridge the gaps or whatever I didn't think I could do. And I always say this because I'm an old educator or former educator or I guess educator because you never stop educating. Um, and that is that uh, when these people come, you think they are you think they are there for one thing, but they really are there for something else. And I know where I was going with this. Mentors who come into your life, they never are pushy. They're never the kind of people who kind of try to tell you what to do. They're there to help guide you. Sometimes they have to let you fall before you can see the truth in something. That happened to me a lot, Tricia. And then they're also there to help pick you up and then show you the right path. And so I've always felt like the mentoring part is so impactful. And I know that if it's not just me, I know there are other people too. So one of my things in life now, especially as I've gotten older, and I know the word says this, and we're supposed to teach the younger generations. I love to work with young generational folks who are willing and thirsting for knowledge. And again, I'll go back to that thing about you don't have to be pushy about mentoring. The best mentors aren't. They really show you in their actions that they're real and that you can trust them. And then great things happen. And so, what's happened with me over the course of my life is I've had so many of those amazing people, some who have gone on. That's why I wrote the book. That's why the stories are there in the book, so that their stories are not lost. But there's some that are still with me to this day. I'll pick up the phone, I'll call and say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Because it's important to have these people, and they're godly people who help minister with you, who will pray for you, pray with you, who will show you some things, and then you got to make the decision yourself. And then usually if you take that wisdom, it really does help you overcome a lot of different things. And so yes, it's almost like I get giddy when you start talking about mentoring because it's as important as anything that I can think of. There's all kind of statistical data. The scientists have done this research and then other people have done the surveys and whatnot, but mentoring makes a difference. And if you see these folks that in the secular world realizing that mentoring is important, us folks in the Christian world, in the relationship world with Christ, we ought to know that mentoring is even that much more important because not only do we have the wisdom, but we have the relationship with the Lord, and we put that on top of it, and it makes things go and makes things work so much better.
Oh, amen.
Yeah.
We can't skip steps. There was one little word that you said in your book that really just popped out at me, and it was microwave.
Oh yeah.
And I thought,
Yes. Yes.
man, oh man, I would have loved to have microwave during my day when I was started out in my career in banking, and I would have loved to have gone to the top a lot quicker than I did. But
Mhm.
now I'm so thankful for
Right.
the mentors and the leaders that held me back
Right.
and
Right.
that would not let me advance until I was ready. They
Right.
saw in me what I did not see. They saw that I was not ready. When, of
Mhm.
course, as a young person, you're like, I'm ready, put me in, coach, I'm ready. But you're not
Yes.
ready. And so
Uh-huh.
and so I think I love that one of the things the most because I had a mentor when I was 18 and she walked beside me and she's still around. She's
Hmm.
84
Hmm.
years old, and so I can still call her and she knows me so well. She can just guide me
Yes.
back
Yeah. Yeah.
into line of where I need to go. But how can we encourage young people to want to mentor? I feel like some of the younger generation, they don't want it. And I have to give them a little bit of grace here because,
Mhm.
like you said, what has happened is the older generation tend to be a little forceful when they're mentoring
Mhm.
and tell them
Mhm.
this is what you need to do. And I think that that has really turned them against even looking at a mentor. So, can you kind of share a little bit on that?
So you caught that part when I said that mentors, the really good ones, they don't tell you what to do. They help guide you. They're kind of like the lighthouse piece. The lighthouse doesn't do anything other than it's got this light and it's a beacon, and they do the same thing. So how do we do it? I think it's through your actions more than words. I'm going to go back to that statement earlier because the ones who impacted me the most, it wasn't because they talked a good game, but they also walked the walk. And what I saw in kids, since I have been in education, I know what kids do is, and a lot of them have been, going back to your original premise, a lot of them have been so disillusioned by older people who said one thing but did another, and they have become so untrusting. It's almost like, go back to the some biblical pieces about how people's heart got hardened because they just didn't believe. And in a way, I think it happens, that has happened that way with some of our younger people, not all but some. And so the tough part is breaking through some of that barrier exterior, some of the stuff that's been put up to keep them from understanding. Number one, I need a mentor. Number two, now I got to pass it forward because I can never pay anybody back. We haven't even talked about that one. Well, we could spend a whole day about that. But to be able to be mentored, and then to be a mentor to someone, and we know, and I know because I've read it, the research about peer mentoring. I'll give you a quick example. So my son has a peer mentor, and his name is Nash. My son's name is Caleb, like Caleb in the Bible. And Nash, 1 year older, but maybe 20 years older than his age. One of those old heads, as they used to say. He just has an old heart, but he's a peer mentor. So the things that, and I always used to tell this to parents, I said, one of the best things you could get, and you can't force it, but if they can find a peer, someone who's in their age group, maybe a couple of years old or whatever, but someone who can tell them the same things that mom and dad will tell them,
Uh,
and yet they can tell them, and they'll listen to those people, or those young people, maybe not listen to mom and dad, but they tell the same thing. Don't get jealous. Just thank the Lord, because the Lord has blessed you if you have one like that. Well,
and
he blessed us. I think I sowed that seed a long time ago, Tricia, because Caleb had and has, he was his best man this past week. He got married, and guess who his best man was? Of course, I told it before I told it, and that was his peer mentor, Nash. And so that young man, I would give gold to that young man for what he's done, for my son, because he can say the same things. And my son now is starting to listen to me just a little bit more. There's that part about, with a little bit of stubbornness, but because Nash is that much more mature, and they're in this close same age group, they can talk and banter back and forth, and he'll get some of the same wisdom, because this young man's a Christian. He'll get some of the same wisdom, except it comes from someone outside. And so when Caleb and I talk, it's like, oh yeah, and I'll just say amen. Oh yeah, that's good. That's pretty good, Caleb. Yeah, as if I didn't want to say that, or as if I didn't say that before. Maybe I did, but it came differently when it came from that peer mentor. But I really do think, and I'll end it with this, that is so important that they can find someone who is a peer mentor, because it makes a difference. And then I think then that it propagates, because they have this research that said if you're a mentor, if you've been mentored, you're that much more likely to mentor. And I do believe that's true. That if you've been mentored, it's kind of like I'm looking up at a picture of a guy that mentored me years ago. He's now gone, but he was one of the most impactful mentors in my life. And what he did for me, I could never repay him. But the only way I can do anything to justify what he did was to spend time doing some of the same things. Maybe I do it in a different way. I can't ever fill his shoes, but I know that there's a part I have to play, and that is my paying it forward piece to make sure that I don't have any regrets in terms of when my life is over. I've done what I can do to push this thing forward, and then hopefully someone will see me in the same way. I think I may have a couple of former students or athletes that maybe see me in a similar light, and I'm like, no, I wasn't any as great as this guy, and he probably has had someone who did it for him. But I think it perpetuates itself if you do great things for others. It's almost as if you have to, and it's got to be a biblical thing, that you have to do something. You really can't pay those persons back, but you can pay it forward, and it's the best way to do it, and that's how we can keep this mentoring thing going.
Yeah, amen. And I say it a little bit differently than you do, Calvin. I say you can't keep what you're unwilling to give away.
Yes. Oh, I like that. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
just it's true, I mean,
Yeah.
we should be having a hand that goes up, and we should be reaching higher ground,
Yes.
and then we should have a hand that goes behind us and pulling somebody up with us
Pulling someone up. Right.
to
Right.
to run this race. And
Right.
it's just so vital. So I'm so glad your son has that, because that's just a
Yes.
huge blessing. So how would we go about getting this mentor? How would we reach that younger generation though? I know that you can reach your son, but I mean like in the
Hmm.
church. Let's talk about the church. We're trying to reach that next generation,
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
know if we don't reach that next generation, our church will die, you
They
know.
will, and we're already seeing some evidences of that in some places. Well, I will tell you, and this is just me and what I've observed and what I've seen, and maybe even what I've had shared with me by whether pastors or whether other people that are working with young people. You have to spend time with the people. I think you kind of alluded to this either before we started talking or maybe after, because you were in HR. And if you don't spend time with people, you don't connect with them, right? And you can talk at them. Talking at somebody is different than talking with someone. And so when you start spending time with people, young people, you start connecting with them. I just saw something that I saw that these two guys were enemies, and they became friends because they started spending time with each other, and they found out they were more alike than they were apart. One guy was black, one guy was white, but they started spending time with each other, and that's what it takes. It takes time. Going back to your microwave analogy, I guess that was my microwave analogy in the
Yes,
book.
it was.
You have to take the time and slow it down. In this era that we're in, everything wants you want to do it fast. You want to get now. How do you spend the time when people's attention span is about 5 minutes, which is what we also talked about? Well, you here's how you do it. You got to find these fun things and fun areas and fun deals that young people like to do, and put them as many of them in place. But then you're there, you're with them. You're not just giving them fun activities. You're actually in the experience along with them, and then it gives you a chance to talk about the experience that you. The more I talk, and I keep using my son, but the more we talk, the better we get in terms of our communication and all of it. And then he understands and he trusts me to share more and more about his life and maybe his life vision and goals. The same thing with anybody in any young person. You spend time with them, you provide opportunities. They've got to be positive opportunities, but you have got to be there. You don't just put the opportunities out there and then you walk away. You said something about leaders before, and I think about leaders in the school system who I remember who I thought were good leaders, but if they did something and they walked away from it and they never were with you in the experience, there was something lacking to that. And then when I go back in my head, and I don't know if I wrote about this in the book, but I think about the leaders who spent time even when they didn't have to spend time, and those people were more impactful. And those are the ones that you wanted to jump over the moon for, or come to work early for and stay later for, because they were with you in the battle, with you in the fight. Well, I really believe that we're in the battle now. We're a heck of a battle, if you want to say it that way. And it means it's gonna require us to give as much of our energy as we can, And I know as I get older, I don't have as much to give as I used to, Tricia. But what I have to do is take care of myself so that when those times come, then I'm ready to give that energy, and I'll give it as much as I can, and the Lord will give us the rest. Yeah, He'll kind of super induce us with a little extra energy from above, and then we're able to stay in there and stay in the fight. Then you have those opportunities and for a conversation that's impactful, and you never know what statement you make that will stick with someone. I had one kid tell me something, and I couldn't remember that I said it, Tricia. So I stayed quiet, but it was so impactful, whatever it was, that he held on to it like a rope, and it was like so we don't know either about what we say, about what we do. Like, I'm gonna go back to what we do again because a lot of the times it's more impactful than what we say. We don't know when we are out there with them that something will catch a hold, and then all of a sudden they realize it's like I use this is one of my statements, and I said it in when I wrote my book about the light bulb moment came on for me with one of my best teachers, really my best teacher ever in the fourth grade. And it was almost the light bulb came on because up until that time I was just kind of going floating through life, and I didn't have a but when she spent time with us. I'm gonna go back to that again. She was real with us. She opened her home to us. She opened her family to us. There was nothing that wasn't transparent. She was a woman of the Lord, and even back in that day, I think they were a lot more open in terms of public schools and somebody praying with. Well, hey, she did it all, and now when I look back, I realize I don't remember a single teacher, professor, you name it, who went to that extreme. That's why she was my best. And that's why when I say she turned the light bulb on, and I've never stopped wanting to get better, inquire, inspire, all of those things because of that one young lady. Oh, and I almost want to get emotional. I want a spelling bee because of that young lady, that teacher, because I wanted her name beside mine at the top. And that was why I haven't won anything since like that. But because of that, because of her inspiration, she inspired me to win and to phonetically spell out everything in my head. And I beat some really smart kids. I don't know that I was that smart, but that day I was going to win and I did. So yeah, that's what it takes. I think that's what it takes.
Amen. And I think that's so true. I think this next generation, just by what we've experienced, my husband and I usually sometimes will go help out at kids camp for church,
Yes.
and the thing that I love about this generation, I mean, I really love it, is they just don't want phony baloney. They can
No,
see through phony
no, they can smell it. They can see it.
uh-huh. They see it and they know
They
it.
see it.
But when they
Yes.
see genuine love and just concern and a hug,
Mhm.
just a touch, you know,
Right.
most of these kids are not getting that at home.
Right. Right.
And that's what I have seen just by just coming up and just putting my hand on their arm
Mhm. Mhm.
and smiling at them and telling them that we're so glad they're here. And
Right.
I see a change in them because they're looking down. Most of them look down. They don't look you in the eye because
Mhm.
they're technology, right?
The technology on the
Yeah,
phone. Right.
yeah,
Right.
they're always on the phone. But and just sometimes just sitting with them, just going, "Hey, can I sit with you? I want to sit with you." And the cool thing about my position now is I'm not a motherly figure to them. I'm more of a grandmother figure to them, which is the best because we always say yes and it's everything is
Yes.
good and so
Everything's good.
yeah,
And
and
you have the time. Because a
yeah,
lot of times the parents don't have, they're so busy engaging in money making or whatever they got to do to put food on the table and clothes. But grandparents, I've realized this now, have the time and the interest, and they're there. Like you said, sometimes you don't have to say a word. Just being there with them is a big deal. It's a big deal.
oh yeah. To
Yeah.
get a hug from a grandmother or a grandpa
Mhm.
is just it can change everything.
I think
God,
so.
yeah,
I think you're right.
God said that it wasn't good for man to be alone and he
No,
created a helper. And the
he
reason why
created us. He created us for relationship.
Oh,
Relationship first with him and then with each other. And technology is great, but sometimes that takes us away from the relationships that we really should have. And so, going back again to your original question to me, it's like you got to do the relationship thing well. If we make relationships a priority, then we really can start pulling some folks back in. And how do you do it? There are lots of different ways you can explore them. I could spend a lot of time too just listing a whole bunch of things, but I want to just say it. Relationships are how you got to do it, and it means time, commitment, but the return on the investment is pays all the dividends in the world. It will pay off in the end.
amen. That's where the fruit comes from.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
see, that to me is being a true leader, a happy leader. A leader is someone that is a
Yes.
servant to the people. And when I was trained to be a manager early on in my career when I was young, the one thing that my mentor taught me then in my career,
Mm-hmm.
she taught me that you're a servant. You're
Mm-hmm.
here to serve your team. You look at
Mm-hmm.
your team and you say, okay, what does my team need?
Right.
How can I
Right.
help my team be the best that they can be
Mm-hmm.
to take my position? How can I groom them to be even better
Mm-hmm.
than me, to even get a higher position than me,
Mm-hmm.
instead of competing with them?
Instead of competing with them, instead of being
Yeah.
jealous with them or envious of them, especially if they outshine you. They're great leaders. They want their they want their mentors, they want their mentees, the people that they're bringing up, their teams. They want them to exceed just like a great parent. I mean, I want my son to exceed anything that I've done. And I don't think I know, my mom and dad wanted my sister and I to far exceed whatever they were able to accomplish. That's what a mentor does. That's what a great leader does. Jesus wanted us to exceed when you think about he said it in his word about discipleship and how many more we were going to disciple over the years. And I'm hoping that we're doing it. But that was what his goal for us was to do that in greater works than these. And I think we missed that point too.
Yeah. He started off
Yeah.
with 12, but he wants us to have 24.
Yes, yes.
You
24
know,
and more.
he wants
If
us
we can
to
have them.
double whatever
Right.
it is.
Yes.
But
Whatever it takes. Whatever
well,
it takes.
our time is running out. So,
Uh-oh.
okay, so I want them to get this book and I'm gonna hold it up.
Okay.
And
Okay.
you've got it right behind
And I've
you.
got it in the
And
back. Yeah,
I love
background.
it. So I just want, before we close, because there are going to be people that are listening to this, and I want them to hear your heart behind this book and just give them hope of why this book could really be a tool for them to use to help them become the leader that God intended them to be.
I think because of the stories, and I know I'm biased because I wrote it, I think because of the people, because of the joy in the stories. Yes, there are certain instances, and I even have a chapter that I call it's my desert times. I call it desert. The kids now call them dips or whatever. And so I guess I didn't use that lingo, but I think they understand, and I think they will understand it. The other part about it is, in particular, I think folks like us can use the book to stay hopeful, to stay encouraging. But I really do think that the young people who are trying to make a life for themselves, and my sweet spot, Tricia, I think has always been high school to college, college to career. But the people who are trying to figure it out, what do I want to do with my life? I love just sitting down and again going back to that thing about not telling somebody how to do it. You just give them options. Let them explore some things. Oh, I didn't know you could do that. Oh yeah, and by the way, let me connect you with that person because they know a whole lot more about nursing than I would ever know, even though my mom was a nurse. And you connect them, do those things, and good things happen, great things happen. And you kind of circle back and see how they're doing or how they're going because you always do your follow up, right? And so you circle back and you make sure everything is going okay. But I think that's why the book is impactful because I'm not trying to show you how to live your life, but I'm trying to show that there's a light out there, that relationships matter. That's very important to be mentored, that's important to mentor, and that there are great people in the world, even in spite of all the stuff that we have to deal with. But you've got to have some help in this life. What one of my former ministers used to say, we can't do life alone. You can't do it in a vacuum. You can't do it by yourself. You got to have help. That's part of this mentoring. That's part of having a great leader beside you. Even part of having a good spouse. And I think your husband's name is, I think it's Roy. I think you got a great spouse. I have a great spouse. It makes a difference. Yes, it does.
It does. Well, Calvin, I can't thank you enough for being on our program today. I know it's going to inspire people. I pray that lots of people get this book and that they will give you their feedback. I'm going to put in the body of this message of how they can reach out to you and follow you and how they can get your book. So I
Great.
hope that you get a lot of feedback on that because I've really enjoyed having you today.
Well, I will tell you, I hope I do too, but I also have been looking forward to this, Tricia, because we shared before how many people have been impacted already by your ministry. And now I realize they weren't kidding. You're powerful. I spent just a little bit of time with you. Hopefully one day you'll have me back on because I think you're doing some really great things and God bless you for it.
Thank you, Calvin.
We want to say thank you so much for joining in on Ministry with Coffee today. If you enjoyed this conversation, we want to ask that you would subscribe to the channel, that you would leave a comment or review, and that you would share it with a friend that could use this encouragement as well. We hope that you leave this episode challenged and encouraged on how to leave a legacy, what it means to mentor people and disciple people and do life alongside people, and the impact that it can truly make. And so, we look forward to seeing you next time on Ministry with Coffee.